As far as Bandai anime original franchises go, God Eater is the one that's been out of commission the longest. Well, maybe among the bigger ones, I suppose you could say. And I've made a video kind of addressing the existence of potential God Eater 4, and if the series is dead. But I wanted to bring this up again because a few tweets from the director have been making rounds.
Here. This is for you.
So there are two tweets from the series director regarding character voice recording. The first of which was in April of 2024, saying that this week of voice recording finished successfully, and the characters were wonderful, and the director was deeply moved. Paraphrasing, he's essentially saying that he's happy with the audio recording. Nothing really special there. The second tweet is much shorter, but happened in July, and is also about roughly the same thing according to the Google translation, which is not always accurate. But in short, this is an indication that Shift is working on another game. Now, whether that game is God Eater is debatable. Now, there is a chance for this to be for the God Eater franchise. The series has been dormant since 2020, with the final update to God Eater 3 being released, leaving us on a technical cliffhanger and with setup for a potential sequel. That being said, it's hard to guarantee that this is for God Eater. Main reason being that Hiroshi Yoshimura was not the director of the most recent game. The game was actually handed off to Marvelous to develop, so while many elements of the characters and stories remained intact, he was not the one involved in a ton of development, if at all. I do dream of a reality where God Eater does return, but I feel like this doesn't necessarily point to the series coming back in a meaningful way.
You're absolutely right. It ain't any of my business.
There's also that job posting dating back to 2021, which shows that Shift, at the time, was working on a new action RPG that would be released worldwide. Seems like they were looking for Unreal Engine developers, which means roughly nothing. Bandai Namco's anime original games have made the shift to Unreal Engine over the past few years. Notably, Scarlet Nexus and Tales of Arise were both developed in Unreal instead of using an in-house engine like most of their previous titles. And if we're talking Shift, there's one other title that was developed using Unreal Engine. Code Vein is fast approaching its 5th anniversary. This is Shift's latest project, which released in 2019. Of Bandai's more recent games, it is technically the best-selling original anime IP, hitting 3 million copies, which the only other title to do that is Tales of Arise, which has a much larger and long-standing franchise behind it. Code Vein has done well, especially for a one-off game, so I could definitely see Bandai greenlighting a sequel right off the bat. And given how it ends, it's entirely possible that there's a bigger story to tell. With Shift being the developers and Yoshimura being the director of the game, I feel like it's much more likely that these tweets are more related to something Code Vein 2 than God Eater 4. Okay, this part here is going to spoil some of Code Vein, so if you don't want spoilers for that, maybe you're playing the game, whatever the case may be, you can skip to the next part. Okay, here goes. So if you've played it, you know that Code Vein is connected to God Eater. We don't exactly know when it takes place, only that it's somewhere before the end of the first game. Probably. Is it then possible that Code Vein and God Eater will have a crossover game? Maybe? We really haven't established how Revenants interact with Aragami, nor do we know what Louis' relationship to Lindo is either, as they have the same last name. More likely than not, it's probably nothing more than a distant relation. You know, a nice nod to God Eater fans. Anyways, the chances of this being a crossover game are unlikely in my opinion. What I mean to say is that calling a game Code Vein Cross God Eater is not going to move units. Bandai has been getting a bit smarter about marketing their games, and a lot of their anime original games are not as big as putting the title on the box will sell copies, if that makes sense. You could make a game like that and sell it under the guise of it being another title. For example, they could make Code Vein 2, tie it into God Eater, and that could be a crossover game, just not directly stating it in the title, but I still don't think it's very likely. This connection is the only thing really keeping me tied to the idea that God Eater might return with Shift, as they might have brand new ideas for the franchise. And I think it's very likely that Code Vein 2 is the thing that will be happening with Shift, and is probably the game that they're working on. And whether it would have direct ties to God Eater or bring up a true return for God Eater is up in the air.
What's happened to me? Did I drive myself crazy trying to crack this case?
And I mean, anything is possible. For all we know, Shift could be developing a Dragon Ball Souls-like Monster Hunter game. I don't know where that idea came from. I just mashed a bunch of words together. Being serious, it is possible that Shift has been handed back the reins to God Eater, and is working on a brand new title for it right now. However, given that both this and Code Vein were released in the same year, and one sold significantly better than the other as far as we know, and that one happens to be the game that Shift was working on, I think the return of Code Vein is much more likely. And obviously, I'm not opposed to the idea or the existence of God Eater 4. While it's not the shining 10 out of 10 a lot of games are, it is a franchise I truly treasure personally. But I'm really not holding out too much hope for it, or if it does exist, for it to be talked about soon. We don't know if it would be developed by Marvelous or Shift. We don't know really anything. The franchise has pretty much been kept in the dark over the past few years. And the shutdown of the mobile game probably doesn't help garner the idea that people really want more God Eater. Regardless, only time will tell. We're now about 4 to 5 years since either of those games saw any action, so it's potential prime time for a reveal. Bandai seems stubborn when it comes to abandoning these anime original IPs, so I'm hopeful. But really, that's all I've got. Just hope. But hey, they greenlit Scarlet Nexus way back when, and that was wholly just a passion project based on what the developers said. So again, anything's possible. I just hope that we hear about something soon. So let me know what you think Shift is working on down in the comments below. As always, you can leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe to the channel for more things anime RPG related. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.
You push it!